We can begin.
Thank you, Sukanya. So, welcome everybody. Tomorrow is June 5th, the World Environment Day. The World Environment Day for us is a day that actually is celebrated every day. It's an every day is the World Environment Day for many of us who have joined this group and are listening to this conversation. For us, environment is the basis of survival, and we know that we have to make a difference. But each year, what we bring to you on the eve of World Environment Day is a compilation which my colleagues put together on the state of India's environment. But this is a unique view because it is a view not with words, but with numbers. And it's important because at the beginning of the year, we bring the State of India's Environment Report to you. And that is a report that helps you to understand the trends that are happening. It brings you the pictures, the stories, the in-depth analysis, and most importantly, it brings you what is the way ahead. But this time, on June 4th, each year, we bring you all that and more, but with numbers. And the reason the numbers are important is that numbers tell you the stories as well. Numbers tell you how to measure the difference that is happening in our world. And so the data points that we bring to you each year are an important way to be able to understand what is happening and what we need to do. We will go in depth with each one of this, but even before I do that, let us launch the report that we have for you. And Sukanya, so as you will see, it's the State of India's Environment Report 2025 in figures. It has the state of states, and then it has the state of climate, extreme weather events, air pollution, health, agriculture, energy, employment, and of course, water and waste. We will share with you all this data today in this webinar, and we look forward to a conversation with you. Without much ado, let me ask my colleague Richard to present to you the first section of the report, which is a very rich section which we bring together on the state of states, where we take government data, we crunch it, we analyze it, and we present it to you. Richard, please.
Thank you, Sunita ji, and welcome all. And as Sunita ji has pointed out, this is our annual, you can say, the data crunching on state of environment and development. To be precise, this is the 10th edition of the State of India's Environment in figures. It means that for 10 years, we have been bringing out this massive volume of data and every year on the state of various things and within the environment and development domains. So this also brings you actually the 10 years of data, and this edition particularly also gives you major trends. When you collect data and give message every year over a decade, you actually find the trends, what's happening in which sector. So this edition, this is the 10th edition, has 12 chapters, means 12 themes under which various data have been crunched, and it has 45 fact sheets or data sets, giving you at least 300 points of information, starting which district or the which state has how many extreme weather events to which state is performing on which parameter of development. And I will take you through the one that we always do is the ranking of states on environment and development parameters. And this ranking takes place on basically it's based on 4 themes. The first, environment. The second, agriculture and land. The third, public health. And the fourth is public infrastructure and development. All these details, and I'll just let you through the methodology, why we do this and how it is being done. I'm not able to. This, yeah. So what is the methodology used to rank states? First, let me tell you why we rank states. Why there is a decision to rank states. As you know, India is as simple as a union of states. And how the states perform basically decides how the country is performing. And country has various development deadlines and targets to meet. For example, the sustainable development target that has to be met by 2030. There are also national targets to be met, various targets starting from this year to 2030. So we actually look at the states, how the states are performing on these parameters. And the second reason why the states need to be ranked or evaluated is basically development is not uniform across the states. So we need to know which are the states actually lagging behind, which are the states on track, and which are the states actually have crossed all the deadlines. Just to give you a nuanced view of where the progress is happening, or has happened, or is lagging behind. So this is the purpose of this report also. It actually gives you a very nuanced state of affairs with environment and development. Now coming to the methodology, we have to rank the states on these four themes. We have used 48 indicators, which have been clubbed under 12 subcategories. And we have actually looked into all 36 states and union territories in this report. To tell you on the state of availability of data, 47 out of the 48 indicators, 47 indicators are from publicly available government sources. We have gone through all the available government data on these 47 indicators. Only one indicator that we have used, our own tracking system, that's called the CSE Down to Earth Extreme Weather Events database. It's on the extreme weather events. And then the indicators have been scored between 0 and 1. 0 is worst and 1 is best. This is according to that universally used what is called the mechanism or evaluation tool called the dimensional index method. Most of the index that you come across is based on this. And the scores have been scaled to subcategory and weightage have been fixed. And overall you get the state has been given a mark out of the 100. So this is how it has been methodology. This is the what we went through, and all the details, state-wise rankings, the marks and everything you will find in the detailed annexures in the report. Now, let me take it through. It's 36 states and union territories, so many indicators, and broadly four themes. What the ranking tells us. First, it gives us, as I told you also, comparative snapshot of progress. Which are the states doing well, about to meet deadlines, various development targets? Which are the states actually are lagging behind also, has not reported any progress? Or maybe there are states which are just progressing well, might meet it. And there are states also which have actually crossed. Is it so? So it's not exactly. So if you look at the overall ranking, all the top ranked states and union territories on these four themes are actually struggling in many critical parameters. No state or union territory excels across all four themes. Excel means a marking of 100, 90. You will not find even the best performing according to this ranking. No state is actually has secured that kind of scoring. Most importantly, as I have been telling you, states actually progress in a very skewed manner. Development is not uniform within India. Most populous states are missing from the top ranks. So these are the states: Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, West Bengal, and Madhya Pradesh. And they together host 49% of India's populations. And what it indicates is that on the development parameters, these four states, which actually account for 49% of India's populations, are not progressing well on missing from the top ranks. I mean, this performance, there is much to need on this. And the last one, there is almost a data drought in the country. We don't have data for most of the parameters that we see available. Then we have old data. In many parameters, we don't have data also. So this also indicates that while ranking and while doing a state of environment in figures, you feel that we lack data. And there are also gaps. Now come to the main core themes that I'll take you through and who are doing well and what is the ranking. The first one is environment. And as you can see this, under these themes, you have subcategories of forest and diversity, climate, waste management, and water resources. And you can see this again, you have indicators are there, all together around 24, 25 indicators. But now look at it. Who are the top in the environment theme? Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Gujarat, and Goa are the top 5 among the states, while Chandigarh leads among the union territories. So that's the overall ranking. And from the bottom, you can look at it. Among the states, you can see from the bottom, Rajasthan, Bihar, Haryana, Punjab, those are the bottom states. Similarly, among the union territories, you have Ladakh, Delhi, and Puducherry on the from the bottom. But if you look at the overall ranking under environment theme, 8 states and union territories have failed to reach even the halfway mark in the environment ranking. And again, if you come into, you see the indicators for the environment. If you look at it, the waste management, 19 states and union territories falling below the halfway mark in the category of waste. They are actually majorly struggling to meet any of these parameters or the progress on the waste management sides. This indicates how big is waste management is a problem in the country, or how desperately we are struggling to have this. Now take me to the next theme, that's agriculture. Agriculture and land, this is the theme, and you can see the subcategories on how it has been defined. Agricultural economy, which includes, the gross state value additions, then horticulture development, rice and wheat produced or the productivity, then agriculture inputs, like, whether irrigations, then also fertilizer and how much organic agriculture is happening in the state. Similarly, the farmer welfare and the sustainable foods development. So under this, if you look at it, the top ranking states are under agriculture and land: Sikkim, Haryana, Arunachal Pradesh, Punjab, and Tripura are the top 5 states. While under the union territories, Andaman and Nicobar leads among the union territories. And in the bottom, if you look at it among the states, Nagaland, Bihar, Telangana, Uttarakhand, these are the bottom among the states for the agriculture theme. And if on the union territories, you have Ladakh and Jammu Kashmir and Puducherry. And to give you another broad overview of this ranking under the theme of agriculture and land, 16 states and union territories have failed to reach even the halfway mark. And as we see, at least 21 states and union territories are falling or found to be struggling under this subcategory of farmer welfare. And farmer welfare includes these three indicators. Percentage of indebted agricultural households. It means in the 21 states, farmers are highly indebted. Second, share of gross cropped area insured under the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, they are failing. It means insurance has not reached to most of the farmers. Similarly, average monthly income of agriculture households in July 2018 and June 2019 has not kept pace with what it was targeted for. So this also gives you the overall scenario of the state of agriculture in the country also. If you look at the Sikkim, which tops the ranking, it actually falls behind in the farmer welfare and overall agriculture economy also. So that's all about the agriculture ranking. Now, let me go to the next one. It's the public health. Public health has four categories, and these are the indicators that were used for the public health. Cost of health. That's basically, it includes how much money you are spending out of your pocket on health. The second, also it includes the percentage of households with any usual member covered by a health scheme or insurance, public. Similarly, the environmental risk, particularly like air pollutions, how the state, what the vulnerability of the state. Then third, health outcome, which actually includes all the classic and very critical indicators like infant mortality, maternal mortality ratio, life expectancy at birth, and others. And also the health infrastructure, the fourth one. It's basically the spread of the, the ratio of how many doctors you have for certain group of peoples, hospital beds available, the hospitals available. So under this, if you look at it, public health theme, Goa, Tamil Nadu, Mizoram, Meghalaya, and Manipur are the top 5 states under this theme among the states, while Chandigarh leads among the union territories. And which are the states featured at the bottom? Among the states, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and Assam featured at the bottom under the public health things. Among the union territories, it's Jammu and Kashmir now, and Dadar, Haveli, and Daman and Diu, and Ladakh. Now, these are the states which are on the top and the bottom, but the overall message coming out of this ranking is that 16 states and union territories again failed under this theme also to reach that halfway mark. As it has been said in the beginning, this ranking, you might have at the top and bottom, but many top ranking states under the four themes are actually not in that category of, even you can call it the excellence or excellent category, reaching above 9% or percentage. And 22 states and union territories falling below the halfway mark. Health infrastructure is actually the biggest development need now. 22 states and union territories don't have actually much health infrastructure as needed. So that's the state of affairs with the public health. Now coming to the last. The theme is public infrastructure and human development. And the categories under are the public infrastructure, gender, education, and unemployment. The other one is that poverty and inequality. And it has indicators like road length, sex ratio at birth, retention rate at higher secondary schools, remember, and also poverty index, multidimensional poverty index, because you don't have a proper poverty index in the country currently. So we have used the multidimensional poverty index. And the Gini coefficient, which basically tells you the state of inequality. As in the beginning, I told you, states are not progressing in a uniform way. Some states performing really very good, some are actually left behind. So under this theme, The top ranking states, Goa, Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and Telangana. These are the top 5 among the states, while Delhi leads among the union territories. Very expected results. But in the bottom, among the states, the bottom states for the public infrastructure and human development, Bihar, Jharkhand, Assam, and Odisha. And for the UT in the bottom is Ladakh and Chandigarh. And what does the overall scenario coming out of this ranking? Here again, 18 states and union territories did not even fail to reach that halfway mark. And remember, on the public infrastructures, that includes your road, per capita availability of power, and households living in kacha houses. 35 states and union territories failed to meet the halfway. And these are actually the most critical dimension in the multidimensional poverty assessment of the country. Look at Goa. Goa tops the ranking, but it fails in actually in many of these indicators. So to sum it up, it shows, yes, it's a ranking. So you have actually states which are performing well. So at the top 5, you have states in the below. But just to reiterate that, not all the top ranking states under these 4 themes are excellent scoring states out of the 100. And all the details about the parameters, the state-wise and indicator-wise scoring, it's all in the annexure of the paper, which will soon also release that part of the paper. Or that's all about the state of states ranking done for this report. Now I will request Rajit to take us through the next findings of the report. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Richard. So I'll take up from where Richard has left. So as Richard has pointed out, there are 12 chapters in this book. The first is the state of states, where we are basically ranking all the states together. There are 11 other chapters. So I will take you through briefly the 6 chapters that follow state of states. And the remaining will be taken up by my senior colleague, Kiran Pandey, who has also co-authored the book. So the beauty of this book, at least what we have realized over the years, is the fact that not only are we looking at numbers, but we are also presenting it in a way that makes sense. And a big part of that is the visualization that goes into it. So we have a wonderful team of Tarun, Sahgal, and Ajit, who put in a lot of hard work to make these numbers readable, because we've all seen these tables in some government report or the other. So I'll just take you through that. So the first is, after state of states, we have state of climate. As we all know that 2024 was the warmest year on record for India, and we're talking from 1901. So the graph on the left shows you that. So if you look at it, all of these bars are individual years from 1901. So most of the red bars are there towards the end. So that basically shows you how warm it has become in the recent years. What we also found is that in 2024, 10 months, the mean temperature, the average temperature, was amongst the top 10 from 1901. And at the same time, the minimum temperature, which is very difficult to understand in the way, but which has a very strong correlation in terms of our output and performance. Because if we don't sleep well at night, our productivity, especially for people who are working outside, it really diminishes. So minimum temperatures were record breaking, which basically means top 10 in the past 123 years for 11 of the 12 months. So that is basically what we found. What we also found is the fact that weather monitoring stations, there are many weather monitoring stations, but in weather monitoring stations across 30 of the 36 states and UTs, they broke monthly highest 24-hour maximum temperature. What that means is, in a specific month, let's say we talk about January. So in January, for a single day maximum temperature, that was broken. Similarly, for 25 states and UTs, the 24-hour monthly rainfall was also breached in the 123 years. So what all of this actually culminates into is the fact that we are seeing an increase in extreme weather events. So if you look on the left-hand side, we have been doing our own extreme weather event database, which is sourced predominantly from government data. So we are looking at Ministry of Home Affairs data on loss and damage. We are also looking at IMD, which does a robust work in identifying extreme weather events. So what we are saying over here is that some part of India was experiencing extreme weather events. So the number of days in a year, so the unit we use is the number of days India has experienced extreme weather events. So what we found, so we started in 2022. So we found that in 2023, it was the highest for the past 3 years, 88%, but you have to appreciate the fact that what we always say is that it is almost a disaster a day. So we are already at the upper end of the spectrum. So out of that, there is a 1 percentage point increase from last year and 2 percentage point increase from the year before. So that way, it's a very sharp increase. And as a result, the human deaths have also gone up. So we, according to our database, in the human deaths, we also look at some media reports. So it's slightly higher than what the government reports. So it's around 3,400 or close to 3,500 human deaths have happened in the last year because of extreme weather events. We also look at the damage to crop area, and that is 4.07 million hectares in 2024, which was also the highest over the past 3 years. Then we move on to the first 3 months of 2025, which is very abnormal if you think about it. So if you see on the left-hand side, what we have done is we have the color-coded extreme weather event types that have happened, the number of days they have happened over the past 4 years for the first 3 months of those 4 years. So at the bottom is for 2022, then 2023, 2024, and 2025. So if you look at it, in 2025, gray is the most predominant. Gray is basically heavy rains, floods, and landslides. That's the extreme weather event type. So out of the 90 days in the first 3 months of this year, 80 days, some part of the country was experiencing a heavy rain, floods, and landslide kind of a situation. That has continued, and we have seen a really early onset of the monsoons this year. And because of that, there was a surprisingly high number of death toll. So we recorded 122 human deaths, which is the second highest in the past 4 years. And we also saw around 24,000 or close to 25,000 hectares of crop area damaged or affected. Another impact of the extreme weather events is how many internal displacements are happening because of this. So this is so what we found, and this is not our own data set. This is something that we take from another data set called IDMC. So what we found in India in 2024, 5.4 million internal displacements happened. I'll just qualify. So this is the number of internal displacements happened. This is not the number of people who have been internally displaced. So this is the incidence of internal displacements. So one person might have been displaced multiple times if there were multiple extreme weather events, which might be a case in India, because we are seeing so many number of days of extreme weather events. So 5.4 million internal displacements have happened in the last year alone. So we around 54 lakh internal displacements have happened. And these are quite widespread if you look at it. The map on your left shows that. So 27 out of the 36 states and union territories reported internal displacements. Assam obviously stands out for last year. It accounts for almost half of these internal displacements, the 5.4 million internal displacements. What we also found is that 2024, so we looked at the data from 2013 to 2024. So roughly 11 years is what we're talking about, or a decade, give or take a few years. 2024 was the highest in terms of internal displacement. So due to caused by weather and geophysical disasters, bulk of it is weather. If I remember right, geophysical, which includes earthquake around, it's roughly 500 or something out of those 5.4 million. So bulk of it is from weather disasters. And in terms of the weather disasters, if you look at it, bulk is from floods. Floods account for around 64% of this 5.4 million internal displacements. Storms is another 30%, and landslides and other wet mass movements. So landslide was basically what happened last year of all the wet mass movements that are there. And that is roughly 6%. So that basically sums up what kind of extreme weather events were triggering internal displacements. We also have a chapter on greenhouse gas emissions. India last year submitted its greenhouse gas inventory to the UN. So this is on the basis of that. The data is for 2020, which is one of the pandemic years. So what we found is that during the pandemic year, the greenhouse gas emissions for India had declined for the first time since 2011. That is the time period that we looked at. And one of the reasons, or the main reason was the pandemic, because it was a pandemic year. What we also saw is that the emissions from energy industry, agriculture sector, industry and agriculture sector, these are the three main sectors, they went down. But the emissions from the waste sector has actually gone down, even though the contribution of waste sector is very small compared to the other sectors, but it actually went up when compared to 2019 inventory. At the same time, we also saw that the carbon removals, which happens through land use change and forestry, that has actually gone up by 8%, which also has partially offsetted the overall emissions. So which is a good thing, and we should be happy about it. When we also looked at the data of what kind of contributions India has in the global sphere, we found that India in 2023, at least, accounted for roughly 7.8% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, which is the highest since 1970. That is the time period that we've looked at. And we also saw that in the recent years, the rate of increase is also going up. So that is also something that we also found while we were looking at the numbers. So the main reason for it is basically, or the main solution to India's development, which is very much important for a country like India, is how green is our development or our energy. So over there, what we looked at was, we looked at new renewables. New renewables basically constitute solar, wind, biopower, and small hydros. So these are the classification that we looked at. So we found that currently, India's 36% of the installed capacity, that means the capacity to generate. The installed capacity is roughly 36% of the total installed capacity for energy. But only when we look at the generation, it is only 14%. The share of renewables in the overall generation currently is around 14%, even though the installed capacity is 36%. So that is something that we have to be careful about. So we are definitely increasing our capacity, but it is currently at least not translating into generation. What we also found is, because it is not translating into generation, we looked at how much has India's overall electricity generation increased over the past decade. So from 2014-15 till 24-25 is basically what we've looked at. So we saw that there's been an increase of 65%, and bulk of this increase has been through fossil fuels. So if you look at the three bubbles at the bottom, they basically show you, so the orange bubble is from fossil fuel out of the 65% increase. This blue is from old renewable sources, which includes nuclear and hydropower projects. And the green is the new renewable sources. So if you look at it, bulk of it is from the fossil fuel sources, which is coal and oil and gas. But obviously, new renewables is also a substantial amount over there. What we also found is that even though overall it is just 14% in terms of generation, some big states, so there are some small states which are doing also very well. But if you look at the big states, because they actually have a big impact in the overall generation for the country and overall numbers of the country, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Tamil Nadu, they are the three states that are leading. And they have more than 20% of their current generation coming from new renewables. So this is something that we also found when we were looking at the numbers. So from there, we moved on to air pollution. Air pollution is another chapter that we've looked at. Air pollution is important. And that is one of the reasons why we've given it a separate chapter, because air pollution is the single largest risk factor that is causing deaths and productivity loss in India right now. So it's one of the, it's more than smoking and drinking and other risk factors. So it is one of the main reasons for disease burden in India right now. So what we did, we just looked at the capital cities, because they usually are worse than the rest of the states. So when we looked at it for the period from 2021, January 1st, 2021, till March 31st, 2025. So basically, this is the period that we've looked at. We've looked at daily AQI levels. And what we found is that out of that 13 Indian capital cities, which includes Delhi, so 13 Indian capital cities, the residents were exposed to polluted air for 1 out of every 3 years. So we're talking about roughly 6 years. For the past 6 years, every third day, the people who have been living here have been exposed to polluted air. How have we classified polluted air? It includes moderate, poor, very poor, and severe days. Moderate, according to the government classification or the AQI classification, is something that causes breathing discomfort to people with lungs, asthma, and heart diseases. Poor is something that basically for prolonged exposure, even healthy people will develop lung problems, and thereon and therefore. So that is basically what we found. We also looked at it from a different perspective. So we looked at it from life expectancy loss that happens. How many years will we live less because of our exposure to air pollution? And we found that out of the 28 state capitals, 18 state capitals had a higher life expectancy loss compared to the rest of the state. That explains what happens when you have localized urbanization around big cities. So, for example, if you look at Lucknow's average life expectancy loss is around 6 years, 5 months, which is almost 6 months more than the UP's state average, which is 5 years, 11 months. Similarly, in this numbers we looked at, so for India, the average is around 3 years, 6 months, and the worst is Delhi, which is a no-brainer. It is 7 years, 9 months of life expectancy because of the air pollution exposure that we have in the city right now. We also looked at state of health. There were a lot of wonderful data sets that have been released over the past few months pertaining to the state of health. So we looked at life expectancy data that has come up, and we found that for the first time in the past 5 decades, in the past 50 years, life expectancy. So this data is till 2021. So life expectancy is calculated for 5-year averages. So this is from 2017 till 2021. So this has the 2 pandemic years factored in as well. So for the first time, the life expectancy of India has actually dipped. So it has dipped to 69.8 from 70 years earlier. So life expectancy at birth. So somebody who's born right now, how many years on an average would that person live? So that has actually dipped for the first time in 5 decades. What we also found, and this is slightly even more disturbing if you ask me, is the fact that life expectancy is calculated for different age groups. So for 0 years, for 10 years, if we are already 50 years old, how many additional years will we live? So that kind of a calculation is there. So life expectancy for newborn, for infants from 0 to 1 years is lower than life expectancy for people, for kids who are more than 1 year. And that is because of the high rate of infant mortality in India. So somebody who's born right now has a lower life expectancy than somebody who has braved the first year in India right now. So that's basically what the data shows. We also looked at sex ratio, and we found that 18 states and UTs have recorded a decline in their sex ratio between 2020 and 2021 because the data was available till 2021. And at the same time, 17 states and UTs have a sex ratio of less than 945 girls per 1,000 male births right now. And 945 is the target that India has under the SDGs right now. So it is 17 states are below that target. 945 is not a wonderfully optimistic level to begin with. So we also looked at COVID numbers, and we looked at the number of deaths that had happened in 2020 and 2021. And we found that approximately 3.06 million excess deaths happened in these 2 years, which is roughly 6 times more than the official COVID total. I'm not saying that all of them would have been because of the pandemic, but many of them would have definitely because of the pandemic and because of the lax health infrastructure at that point in time. So how this calculation is done is that government has a rough estimate of how many people on an average die every year. So this 3.06 million is the extra people who died in those 2 years compared to what happened in 2019. So we have just added the 2 numbers for 2020 and 2021. Bulk of it was in 2021.
Rajit, you really need to keep this a little tight now.
Okay, ma'am.
Left Kiran.
Last slide, I'll just wind up.
Okay.
So we also looked at the rural health infrastructure, and we found that there are issues at all levels within the rural health infrastructure, predominantly in terms of the number of rural health centers that are available, community health centers that are available, and the doctors, specialist doctors that are available. So there was an 80% shortfall in specialist doctors at community health centers, and that is the first level where rural India gets access to specialist doctors like pediatricians, like gynecologists and surgeons. So that is also something that we found, and we also found that there is a high incidence of out-of-pocket expenditures as well. I'll stop over here. The book is available over here. I'll give it to Kiran. Kiran, can you just take over for the rest of the presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Rajit. Kiran, please.
Thank you, Rajit.
We are running short of time, and we have some very good questions. So I want to give it some time for questions. So keep it a little tight, Kiran. Sorry.
Sure. So my colleague Rajit had just spoken about extreme weather events. Okay, and the losses these events caused to the country. What was especially alarming was the losses to the cropped area in the country due to these events, which have gone up. So, but the report, the report tells us about how climate change has affected the agriculture sector. But the report goes beyond climate change, and I'll talk about those aspects. So, it shows that when we saw the state of agriculture in the country, what we found was that the share of agricultural land has actually gone down from 62% in 52-53 to 58.69% as of now. Okay? And this is a decline, and this means a lot for the economy of the country. What we also found, and it was actually alarming, was that so this shift in the share of agricultural land has pushed the farmers towards unsustainable farm practices, which means that over dependency on groundwater. So we are growing, we are extracting more groundwater. At the same time, we are also focusing more on water-intensive crops in the regions where it's not supposed to be done. And so this meant, and in fact, the data over here on the left-hand side clearly show that the share of area under, the share of area under irrigated, which is done by tube wells, has actually gone up drastically, and it's gone up by almost 286 times in the country. And if you further see this, we found that more than half of the land, irrigated land in Punjab and other states now depend on tube wells. This is clearly reflected in the chapter on water also in the book. Okay? So this shows that the stress on groundwater is actually going up. That's not sustainable. Other interesting aspect was, as we're talking about millets, the country, we are all aware of the millet question in the country, but we're surprised to see that the area under major millets has actually declined sharply. And this is almost a 50% decline, 55% decline over the years. And why this is worrying, and it should be noted, is because these are supposed to be climate resilient crops. When we talk about climate crisis, this is of concern, this should be taken note of. And these millets are not only climate resilient, they're also highly nutritious and essential for food security in the country. At the same time, an interesting aspect was about how much money we spend on processed food. We assessed the budget people spend on the food, and we found that just a second. We found that both the rural and the urban households spend the bulk of their food budgets on processed foods and beverages, which means, and this is happening, so this is in both rural and urban households. It was thought that only urban people focus on processed food, but now the trends have changed, and the budget clearly shows that it's both in both the parts of the country. People are focusing on processed foods that's being consumed, and this is not a good food habit. The budget clearly shows that. Besides agriculture, forest is another kind of natural resources that the book talks about. In this, I would like to focus on two things. Number one, India's latest forest report that has come out clearly shows that forest cover has increased, and that's good. Okay, but when we went deeper into the data, what we found was that of the total forest cover that has increased, 97% of this increase was outside officially recorded forest. And the data on the left-hand side shows that. So in 2013, it was 25.59% of the forest was outside recorded forest. But in 2023, which means in over a decade, this has increased to around 27%. And at the same time, we try to do an analysis of how much of the forest has been used for non-forest purposes, which means area that's diverted for other activities. And again, the data was alarming. And what we found was that almost an area of 20,000 hectares of forest land has been diverted in this year. This was the highest since 2014-15. Of these, if you see, 5 states, which includes Jharkhand and Uttar Pradesh, have recorded a decade high of diversion, the highest they have seen in 10 years. And so we also assessed data on human-animal conflicts. And so what we realized that these diversions, which disrupt the wildlife corridors, are one of the factors behind such conflicts in the country. And so there has been substantial rise in the conflicts between man and elephants, and the data shows that there has been a rise of the deaths of human deaths due to elephant attacks in the country over the years. So, as we said that Rajit was talking about water aspect in the states ranking. In that, the most alarming thing was we had assessed both ground and surface water resources. And so this data is all about that. It shows that water quality in the country is of concern for both the kinds of water resources, which include surface and groundwater resources. But what is of concern is that when we need to monitor these resources very carefully, we found there have been simple data gaps in the monitoring of these resources. For example, if we talk about river pollution in the country in 2022, we were able to monitor just 37% of the total river quality stations. So the country has around 870 stations where water quality was monitored. Of these, we had monitored just around 37%, which is not sufficient. But nevertheless, the data gaps are there. But the data that we already had and was seen that show that rivers are actually very toxic. Half of the rivers that were stations that were monitored show that these rivers have toxic heavy metals, and these are at levels beyond the prescribed levels, and they are very hazardous for the health. For example, this includes arsenic, cadmium, these kind of heavy metals. And arsenic, if you ask, what we found was arsenic has been found at above safe levels in around above prescribed levels in around 14 rivers that flow across 3 states. Now coming to groundwater, as I have already told that in the section on agriculture that water has been under stress due to various causes, and agriculture is one of the sectors for that. And now this fact clearly shows that what this means. This shows that okay, so overall the picture is India's water usage has improved slightly, but there has been modest rise also. But around in few locations or in some locations around 16 states and countries, more water is being extracted than we are recharging it. And what this means in numbers is that, so we analyzed data on the districts where water has been extracted. And what we found was, this is a detailed data. So we did a decadal analysis of water extraction in this in the country at district level. We found that in 2000, 10 years ago, there were 75 districts where water was deeper than 40 meters, but this has increased by almost double. This means to clearly show that yes, water in the country is under stress, and there's groundwater especially that we need to take care of going forward. Now coming from, so we spoke about natural resources. Now let's talk about waste. Again, I'll just go back to what Richard told us, that waste was a parameter that brought most of the states down in the rankings. Okay, and this again sheet shows that, and we had assessed we have 4 kinds of waste: legacy waste, e-waste, hazardous and plastic waste. I will talk about the plastic waste. Okay. Well, the graph clearly shows that there has been a surge in generation of plastic waste in the countries. In fact, 15 states and UTs have seen more than 50% increase in plastic waste being generated. But what is also emerging from this analysis is that, and these are all big states, but what we also found, if you see the fact sheet over here, the red and the orange bars over here, you'll find that it's not just the big states like Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Delhi, but you also have the northeastern region that is under plastic crisis. And so the bars are, the length of bars is too short. But if you see the increase in plastic waste, and you'll see that at least 5 of the 7 northeastern states are in this band. And in this, so 4 northeastern states, which includes Mizoram, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Sikkim, they have seen 50% increase in plastic waste being generated, which means this is a pan-India crisis. And so we can't ignore Northeast also in this when we talk about plastic waste generation. So it's not just big states, small states are also part of this crisis. Well, the book is about environment and development. In this context, we can't ignore employment. Okay, and what we found was, okay, there have been news reports that the country is under crisis, but now the data clearly establishes that our workforce is under stress, and it's not just formal but also the informal sector. Both sectors are under stress. What we found was alarming was that so while people are salaried, they get salary, they get paid for the salaries. But if you see the real income of these people, it means if you also talk to inflation over years, so in real terms, in real income, the real income of these people has actually declined. We talk about the inflation taken into account, okay? And this means more economic stress for the working population in the country. Okay? People who are getting paid for the country, and it's not just paid. The informal sector, as of now, in the country, 73% of India's workers are in the informal sector, okay? Which means job security is rare in the sector. And this is this graph over here. So over the years, there has been a rise in people working in the informal sector.
Kiran,
Yeah.
you really need to conclude
Yes,
now.
this is just the last slide. Yeah.
Please.
So besides this informal sector, gender disparities, another crisis that we found in the country that existed. And why we're talking about these crises is because in this female workers, people working in the employment sector, which are being paid for the jobs. Okay, there has been a wide disparity. When just 60% of the men in the country are being paid for the jobs, just 21% of the women are working in the sector where they're paid for their jobs. And this is huge disparity. This needs to be addressed. Why? Because this is a major sector where the country's overall scoring in the area of sustainable development has actually gone down. So this means this is again an area that we can't afford to ignore and needs to be addressed. And I think I'll just stop at this stage. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you, everyone. I feel so bad interrupting any one of you because the data is so rich. We have so much to share with all of you. So please forgive us. There's still a lot more in the report that hasn't even been shown to you yet. But I want to give a few concluding remarks, but there are many questions here which I thought need to be answered as well. So let me take them very quickly and ask for very quick answers from everyone. So one is the question on 2025 is the year for child malnutrition. So what is the source? Is NFHS 5 not the latest available? That is the question. So very quickly, Rajit.
Ma'am, we have used, there's a portion tracker that the government has started, Ministry of Women and Child, they have started it. So in that, all the Anganwadis are part of it, and they are also using it in Parliament questions. So they have updated numbers. So we have used it. It's newer than the NFHS number.
And that source is provided in the report.
Absolutely, ma'am.
February 2025.
2025. Excellent. Now, can it be possible 2 corona waves could be reflecting data as lower life expectancy?
Yeah, I think, can I answer this?
Yes, please.
Yeah, as the report has said that clearly, it has a data called excess death. Why excess death is monitored is also basically to look at why suddenly in 1 year in your normal death rate, more people have died. And we have seen in this excess death, we have not reported India in the even last 50 years also. We never had an episode like this. But suddenly you have nearly 3 million people excess deaths happening there. The COVID could be one reason because we didn't report actually or certify so many of deaths. Now coming to another, when you go through the report, you will find that upper respiratory diseases has also, the number of death has also spiked. And those symptoms, and we all know that coincides with COVID kind of things. So definitely, the only way you can explain such a high excess death is that there must have something happened that caused the death. And we know that 20 and 21, particularly 2021, has caused the maximum deaths due to COVID and also the upper respiratory and other respiratory deaths which have been recorded separately there. There were spikes. And yes, when you have so high a figure of excess death, you will bring down the life expectancies, definitely. And it's 2 months it took away. And it is not just this government of India's some registered data. You have other studies also which show that the life expectancy has come down. And when you go to the report, you will see many more things.
Okay. Many questions, and they need quick answers. There's a very good question from Vimal Baklu. Agriculture, Sikkim being on top is understandable, but how come Punjab and Haryana are after that? Despite the fact that farming over there is unsustainable, it raises questions about the methodology being used for ranking from an environmental perspective. So please explain the ranking that you have, why Punjab and Haryana come on top. It's a very, very good question. Who's going to take this? Who's going to take this? Rajit, please go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, I don't have the numbers right away, but so Punjab and Haryana were doing well. So, in terms of productivity, they have scored higher than the rest of the country. And also in terms of, there are 4 weightages or so, 4 subcategories that we've looked at. Yeah, Richard, you want to comment? So,
I'll just give you the, this.
I think the question that is being asked very clearly is, are your weightages properly organized so that the environmental weightage is given adequate ranking? Otherwise, it just seems strange why Punjab and Haryana come on top. So, Richard, what are your weightages ranking?
Now come to why Punjab has topped, or is coming among the top 5 is basically on the indicators first. Rice and wheat produced per unit area, that's based on the SDG India Index 2023-24. Punjab topped, so it got a higher thing. Similarly, agricultural input, if you look at it, particularly percentage share of area irrigated. So that's one that's again used by land use statistics and the government of India categorizations. That's Punjab got the highest. That's why it actually added to its things. And if you look at it now, these two actually added and enabled Punjab to feature among the top 5. Otherwise, in the farmer welfare, you will not find in that indicator Punjab performing anywhere there. Similarly, if you look at it, sustainable land use, Punjab didn't feature at all. Rather, Haryana topped it according to land use statistics. And if you come to the percentage of degraded land and over total land area, which is one of the sustainable development goal index done by Niti Aayog, which we used, Punjab actually performed very badly because it has degraded land. But only on 2 counts it's actually added to the weightage.
So I think, Vimal, the point is we are putting together a composite index. We have put together different measures and given them different weightages and put together an index. This is not just only an environmental index. It is an index which talks about the state of agriculture. Now, maybe my colleagues can think about it next time from this very interesting question that maybe your weightages for what is the index for productivity or input can be given lower ranking as compared to other rankings, other weightages, for instance, organic agriculture or sustainable land use. But clearly what we have done is to put together a composite index, and that sort of gives a ranking based on what is good in that state and what is indeed bad in that state. Okay. I have Vimal again comparing states with Goa, like states like UP, which are larger on health. It makes it interesting. Are we using weightages while setting benchmarks? Otherwise, the report could continue to remain same year after year and just a formality. I think very good point again, Vimal. Again, the idea is to provide a trend. And we try and create some sort of weightages which provide you that trend year after year after year. But you're right. Maybe we need to be more creative in the way we use our weightages in subsequent years, maybe in separate chapters, which we could do, where we could change the weightages that are there. On the GHG emissions, we don't have later data. Rajit, I saw that you had used data which was more recent on GHG emissions. Maybe you can explain the source of that.
And that is from there's a European Union report for the global emissions is what we are talking about. So it's a European Union report that they came up with earlier this year. So that is the source for India versus the world. Otherwise, the inventory is from the what we have for 2020. Nothing updated on that after that.
Okay. I think the same thing comes up with Swasthya Siddha Sarkar, in which essentially, I mean, thank you for your very sweet words on the amount of work, and it is phenomenal amount of work that Kiran, Rajit, Richard, as well as our entire team, which visualizes this, Tarun, Ajit, do, to bring you this data and to make some sense on it. And thank you very much for your kind words on it. But what you have asked is that one issue I want to know from the team is what they think about Indian states having highlands within their spatial limits. Will the indicators be equally applicable in giving us a picture of the highlands, which is the Himalayas and the Himalayan states, on equal terms? The agriculture question has now raised to reflect this. If I may add, if we look at the same data, we find not only Sikkim, but also Arunachal Pradesh comes out as better performing states with respect to agriculture. While if we look at hydropower projects, which are just booming in these two states, leading towards eviction and land grabbing. And above all, land ethics are. So, I mean, here, let me reply to it. I think you very clearly picked up the 2 points, but these are 2 separate points. There is a point about agriculture, and there was another question asked in the question answers, and maybe you can reply to that, one of you, which is, you have talked about land under agriculture going down. So the question is, where is it going? And that was a question that was asked. But essentially, what we are saying here is, from all the indicators, Sikkim and Arunachal are doing well on agriculture. Then yes, there is also the data set on the amount of land that is being diverted for so-called development projects. And there these states may be failing badly. But I think that is why it's important to have clear data and then join the dots. Data we can't get the story out of one data set, but that's where your skill is going to lie, in understanding the data and being able to put together the full story. Is there anything else, Shuparno, Sukanya? I think the one question I had, which I missed, is the question about where is this land going? Rajit, you wanted to add something?
Yes, ma'am. The fact that this is a paid publication, ma'am, a lot of people had asked about
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to come to that.
Okay,
I'm going to come to that. In fact, I want to come to one other point that I had here, which is from Fayaz Tantre, which I really, thank you so much for raising this, and we really need to learn. I have been asking my colleagues, and Fayaz, if you have any help that you can give us, and we really want to work on this, is to use of geospatial technology, artificial intelligence, and machine learning tools for advanced data analysis, and also provide state UT-wise dashboards along with proper data source links. I think, this is really where this data needs to go. We have limited resources. This is all being done in-house by putting this together. But I think this is going to be the next challenge that we're going to have, to be able to raise some funds and to be able to get to the next level, because this is powerful data. And that then brings me to the point that all of you have been asking is this report available? Sadly, this is one report that you will have to pay for. We really work hard to put this data together. And I don't know how much, Richard, what is the cost of the report?
200 rupees.
200 rupees.
Actually,
Please.
7 rupees per day, but take it as a contribution. This,
Yeah.
if you buy
Please
it, it
download
enables
it.
the next
Please
report.
buy it. It helps us to feed our corpus, which helps us to keep doing this work. It's a very small contribution that we're requiring, but please do so. We are going to print the report, and we will make the report also available as a printed copy very soon on our site. But I think there are some fascinating questions that have been raised, both by all of you in the question answers and also in the chat. I want to really end by talking about some of the big takeaways from this report. I think one of the biggest takeaway from this report is that we have to understand our world as it is changing around us. And some of you have asked very clearly, is there some good news? What can we say is happening which is also good? There are some nuggets of good news. There are some trends which are showing that things are improving. But we will not see more improvement unless we can deep dive and see what is someone doing to make a difference, which is why this ranking of states is very important. We put together the methodology for you. We have put together the ranking and the parameters. And the idea is for you to now understand, so what's happening here, which we can draw some lessons from? What can we do better in other states of India? What can we do better in other districts of India? I think it is absolutely critical that we not deny the state of the problem, but that we applaud equally the state of the good work that is happening, which helps us to understand what can we do next. Because this report, more than anything else, tells us that not only is there a crisis, but there is the opportunity that we have, that people are practicing, that we need to be able to fix the damage that is happening to the state of our environment. That, to me, is the biggest story that comes out of this. The other big thing that comes out is the cross-chapter learning, the joining the dots. I look at one of the most fascinating issues is really the question about weather. The data that Rajit presented to you that is in the report is really about the extreme weather events. It's about the extreme heat that is happening. But then there is also the data set on the migration that is happening in the world because of these extreme weather events that is happening, the increasing poverty that we are seeing in our world. As a result of it, the greater stress on urban areas that we will see, and that will put more pressure on water, sanitation, garbage management that we are beginning to see in our world. But it also tells us what we need to do for adaptation, how quickly we need to move to be able to fix this so that we can cope with this changing weather and the extreme weather events that are happening. So the data is real. The data is totally dependent on what is being put out by government sources. And then all we have done is to join it and visualize it. We have put together the points of data into a full picture. It's like weaving a tapestry. That's what we have done here for you. My last point is the value of data. Each year, as we put together this report, we find that we are getting in this world of AI, in this world of high tech, in this world which is scientific, we are finding that we are actually getting less and less data which is credible, which is reliable, which is useful. And the plea that I have is data is not about the problem. Data is about the solution. Unless we have data, we cannot really find the policies that will work. One of the examples I have given in my foreword is the one that we are working on currently, which is Yamuna. We know that the pollution of Yamuna is big. It is a river which is desperately in need of more life. But we know that if we want the policy to work for Yamuna and we want a new policy, we need to get the data right. And for that, we need to know how much wastewater is generated. But the basis of wastewater generation is the amount of water that is supplied. And the basis for the water supply is the population numbers that we have in our cities. The last census was 2011. We only have projected data today. And that projected data also is not data that is being used for policy as much as it should. So as a result of it, we really have a crisis in policy making. It's the same with transport. You can't do transport planning unless you know the number of cars that are on the road. The number of cars that are on the road are not just about the registration, but really about the population that exists in the city and therefore the modal share of usage. At every point we find data is key for policy. And that is why our very strong plea is that we need more data, not less. But we promise you that the data that is there, we will each year present to you this full picture of what that data shows. The state of art, the state of the environment in figures. But most importantly, and we promise we will use new technology to try and see how we can give this data better shape, new shapes for you in the coming year. Thank you very much for joining us. We're really delighted that so many of you joined and so many of you stayed through this voluminous data presentation that we did. And I'm so thrilled with the questions that we have and the chat that we have. It tells us we have a community out there, and that's the strength that we draw from you. That strength is your strength is our strength. So on the eve of World Environment Day, as the world gets together to celebrate it tomorrow, let's be clear that the state of the environment tells us that we have a long way to go. We are doing things, but we have a long way to go. And that's the courage with an imagination that we need as we move ahead.